Rather than just come back to the Kosi Arsenal podcast, my name is Kosi. We'll come back to a brand new video. We are in the market for a new winger in January. Obviously, what has happened with Bukayo Saka. Mikel Arteta confirming it's gonna be more than 2 months without Bukayo Saka. And you look at Arsenal, especially after the Ipswich game, and you realize something. This team lacks a star. This team lacks a brave player that can make things happen. We lack someone that has got that enthusiasm to go and make things happen. Of course, Odegaard is the only spark of creativity now in the team. Saka's numbers are imaginable. They're immense. They're unbelievable. I mean, if Liverpool have Salah, Arsenal have Saka. There's no question about that. So without Saka, Arsenal have to look to the January transfer market to get some options. And here are some of the names we are looking at to bring in January as new wingers. We're going to be diving into some of the names. There are around 6 names. I'm quite surprised that we have already accumulated such a list. And I think by the time we get into January, the list might be even bigger than this because, listen, some of these names are being carried from the summer. We looked at Seeno in the summer. We looked at Nico Williams in the summer. I believe January will have its own opportunities. January will have its own, players that teams can look into. Like I said, if you look at Rashford, that is a January transfer opportunity. In the summer, Rashford was not available. In January, Rashford is more than available. I'm not saying we sign him. I'm saying he is a January, option on the market. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Saka is out for more than 2 months. Does that guarantee us, urgency in the market? For me, it does. And let me know which winger of these do you think Arsenal should get. And even if the name that you want is not on the list, let me know in the comment box below. So let's start off with Alex Monero at Las Palmas. Now, Alex Monero is a deal that is being reported as done, but it is not done. It's not even yet closed. He's a player that is really catching a lot of scouts. Scouts' attention. Is a player that's really on the radar of a lot of scouts, and Arsenal scouts are also looking and monitoring Alex Monero. Now, the problem with Alex Monero is this: 60 million. For you to splash 60 million on a player in January, they've got to be really proven, and you've got to have followed them for quite some time. Now, I don't want to lie, and I don't want Arsenal to lie to us. We have not been following Alex Monero for a long time. This would be like the Ricardo Calafiori kind of signing. Remember Ricardo Calafiori? Arsenal were really not too much into him, but then we ended up having Ricardo Calafiori as one of the priority targets. And if you look at his injury record prior, and you look at his injury record now, Calafiori has suffered like 3 injuries already this campaign. I don't think Arsenal would have not had reservations about his injury record if they had followed him for quite some time. So with all that, I think Alex Monero is a difficult deal. Why Alex Monero is actually suited for a January transfer move is because he's at Las Palmas. And I'm not trying to say Las Palmas should sell. I'm trying to say, if you're trying to win a player, if you're trying to sign a player from a club like Las Palmas, it's much easier than trying to sign a player from Newcastle or West Ham. Reason being, for them, they'll look at 50 million as a huge addition. They look at that 60 million, as a huge amount. And maybe they feel it's the right opportunity. We might not get this opportunity again in the summer. Arsenal are desperate, and that's why we'll be willing to pay kind of the premium for Alex Monero's services. So if Arsenal really are interested in Alex Monero, that is a deal that can be done. But I think 60 million, that is because it's January. If it's in the summer, you could get Alex Monero for less than 40 million. And of course, he would be a very, very good replacement for Saka, a player that could come in, not give you a lot of trouble as a manager to start him every game, but he can do the job when you call onto him. So that is number 1. Number 2 on the list is Seeno at Bournemouth. Now, of course, Seeno is a player I've talked about, in a video. But I've never said how good Semenyo is. Like, Bournemouth as a collective, as a team, they're really good. You think about, Clivert, you think about Semenyo, you think about, Otara, yeah, you like the likes of Billing. They're so good as a team. But Semenyo as a player is such a wonderful, wonderful talent. Would he sit on the bench if Saka came back? Yes, because that you've got to factor in that, right? You've got to think about it's Pep Guardiola who said you cannot have 22 players, right? 2 players per position. But what you can have is a player, or you could have 11 players and then 7 other players that are so versatile they could play in every position. Like Julian Timber can play across the centre back position and can come into midfield. Things like that. So with Semenyo, why I am afraid for him is that he's not that versatile. You're going to play him as a right winger and maybe as a left winger, maybe just that. Secondly, Semenyo is going to be very expensive. I mean, Bournemouth are in fine form. They're not in desperate need of funds. They're not in desperate need of money. That means that if you're taking one of their best players, they've got to replace him, and they've got to replace him well. That's where the problem is, right? He will be expensive because they don't need to sell. They don't want to sell, especially in January, and is a key player for them. So I'm thinking Bournemouth will just put the price a little bit higher up to fend off any kind of interest from any other club. But Semenyo would be a very good option. Good at scoring goals. He's a good player at taking on players 1v1. And I think with Saka, you have a guy that can make things happen at any point in time. Semenyo is also a player that can make things happen at any point in time. And I prefer Semenyo to the next player we're going to talk about. And the next player is Bryan Mbeumo. Now, for me, Bryan Mbeumo has an advantage. Listen, Bryan Mbeumo has an advantage. He can play as a striker. So he can just generally play as a forward. It's just generally for a player. You can play him alongside Kai Havertz in what we have seen Mikel Arteta trying to do. He's trying to play Kai Havertz behind the striker. So you can pair him with Kai Havertz as the front 2, and it works. And it can also be your right winger. The reason as to why I don't like Mbeumo as a signing now, I would like it in the summer, but now, is because Mbeumo is like, first and foremost, he's a Thomas Frank player. The results you're seeing are courtesy of Thomas Frank understanding Bryan Mbeumo, but not Bryan Mbeumo being so good and so wonderful, in my opinion. That's number one. Number two, I think he has not nailed down any of the positions that Arsenal want to reinforce in January. I don't think he's that, real number 9, and I don't think he's that real number 7. Like, if you are going to put him, wide and play the ball into him for him to make things happen, like Saka does, I don't think he's that player. If you're going to play him as the forward player, draw Kai Havertz into midfield, I'm still not convinced about it as well. I'm still not convinced about it as well. So generally, Bryan Mbeumo would be a good player just to have around the squad, like a bench player. If like the way you see Trossard, right? You could start him in a couple of games, but primarily he's got to be a guy that is just there for your squad. So Mbeumo in January, for me, I'm not convinced. And of course, will Brentford want to let go of their best goal scorer? No. It's going to be a very expensive deal if they decide to. I don't think Arsenal have to. I don't even rate Mbeumo at £40 million. I really, really don't. But Mbeumo is another one. Leroy Sané is a big, big possibility. And not just for Arsenal, but Sané is a big possibility on the market because his contract talks and Bayern are going nowhere. They're going nowhere. Now, Bayern want to sign Atletico Bilbao's Nico Williams. They're interested. Bayern have signed Michael Olise as well, remember? And they're also interested in Florian Wirtz. That shows you that Sané's time at Bayern is slowly but surely coming to an end. And maybe Bayern would be willing to listen to a couple of offers in January if that's going to make them some money rather than lose him on a free in the summer. So Sané, who has worked with Mikel Arteta, he could be a cheap deal, by the way. Very, very cheap. So keep your eyes open on Leroy Sané. Mohamed Kudus, the price has been set by West Ham. It's 80 million. No, I don't think Arsenal are going to pay 80 million in January for Mohamed Kudus. But there's another player that is quite exciting. And with Kudus, the advantage is you sign him now. It's a long-time signing. It's a long-term signing. Like, you're going to have him for 5 years. He's versatile, can play in a couple of positions. And I think it's what we need. But 80 million in January, I'm not convinced about that. And finally, of course, you've got Marcus Rashford there. I didn't want to give him a lot of time because I know people on this channel have mixed reactions about Marcus Rashford, but he's there. And then you also have, on that same list, you have with Nico Williams, who I don't think is going to be available in the summer, but a big player wanted by Arsenal and Mikel Arteta.